continue as 45-year-old Roberto Duran takes on Mike Culbert in a scheduled 10-round super middleweight bout. Bob Papa along with Al Bernstein, and now Roberto Duran looking for career win number 99. He's got star power. There are nearly 3,000 people here.
No matter what you want to say about him still boxing at the age of 45, and there are some things to be said negatively about it. The fact is he has made boxing history. He is, in fact, one of only 4 men who've won titles in 4 weight divisions. Turns has actually won in 5 weight divisions, but you look down that list, and those are great champions, all of them. And for Roberto Duran, it has been a storied career. How did he win all those titles? Just look at this. First beating Ken Buchanan in a memorable bout in the Garden. Then in 1980, beating Sugar Ray Leonard in Montreal. Then beating Davey Moore at the Garden when everyone thought he was washed up. They thought he was washed up again in 1989 when he beat Iran Barkley. He keeps defying the odds.
16-5 with 12 knockouts in championship boxing. Of course, this one is not a championship bout. He'd like one more world title championship under his belt, and then he said he would hang up the gloves. And Mike Culbert, born in Ireland, moved to the United States when he was 2.5 years of age, fighting out of Brockton, Massachusetts. He's 30 years of age, 20-3.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've been waiting for. Budweiser, the undefeated, undisputed king of beers, brings you a 10-round bout in the super middleweight division. From the city that gave you Rocky Marciano, Brockton, Massachusetts, with a professional record of 20-6. He weighed in today at 166 pounds. We welcome Mike Culbert. I'm sorry, that's 20-3. And in the blue corner, he has fought more champions than any other man in modern ring history. He is boxing's indomitable warrior with a record of 98 victories, 12 defeats, 67 of his wins by knockout. From Panama City, Panama, Manos de Pedro, Roberto Duran. And your referee for this bout, Dave Johnson.
You guys got your instructions in the dressing room. Nice and clean, keep your punches up, watch your heads, watch your low blows. Everybody ready for this now? Any questions? Any questions, Roberto? Good luck.
Mike Culbert last fought on June 22nd in Massachusetts, a 6-round decision over Jose Williams. Earlier this year, he suffered his 3rd professional loss, losing a 10-round decision to George Heckley. And we begin round number 1, scheduled for 10. Duran, the reason why we told you he's 98-12 with 68 knockouts, as opposed to how it was announced in the ring. He fought on August 31st in Panama, a first-round knockout of Ariel Cruz. Al, how about the southpaw? I mean, Duran's seen everything, doesn't he?
Well, he has, but yeah, it does, because he doesn't especially like facing southpaws. Of course, the southpaws, some of them he has lost to, like Camacho, Hagler, Sims, have been a rung above Culbert, but Culbert's tall and he's lefty and he likes to move. That is actually not a great prescription for Roberto Duran, especially at this age. Well, I remember doing a Roberto Duran bout here on ESPN in 1982 when he lost to Kirkland Lang. And at that point, he'd lost to Leonard and Benitez. And I tell you, Bob, when he lost that bout, the buzz in the boxing world was, I guess it's all over for Roberto Duran. That was 1982. Here we are, some 14 years later, and he's still boxing.
Duran has 21 first-round knockouts in his career. Culbert has no knockout losses in his career. Duran's first year as a pro, Otis Redding's The Dock of the Bay was one of the top songs, and the Andy Griffith Show and the Lucille Ball Show were the top shows in the United States.
You mean to tell me there was a time when Andy Griffith wasn't in rerun? I'm shocked.
No. You could buy a house for $24,000. The average income in the United States was $8,000. Now you get that a show.
Not close.
What do you think of Culbert so far?
Well, he's doing what he needs to do, moving and making Duran throw punches and miss, making him work. And I don't think Mike Culbert minds if he gives away a couple of early rounds. Not getting hit much anyway. He just wants to make Duran do things, tire him out a little. One of the many things that has changed about Duran over the years is the haircut. He's got kind of a buzz cut now. Different look for him.
You know, you mentioned everyone thought he was finished the buzz in boxing in '82. Then you fast forward 9 years later in '91 when he was knocked out in the 8th round by Pat Lawler. Everyone said, all right, that's it for Duran, no more. And he still managed to come back.
He just refuses to go away. And interestingly, in his bout against Camacho, he had his moments, and a lot of people feel he won that bout.
Yeah, and so did Duran. Closing seconds of round one. This one is scheduled for 10. Yeah, folks, that's Roberto Duran still going against Mike Culbert. Welcome back to Chester, West Virginia. They're getting the mouthpiece in Roberto Duran's mouth. We start round number 2 of the scheduled 10-round super middleweight bout. If you've been with us from the beginning of the night, you noticed in West Virginia they were using a 5-point must system for scoring. We should let you know, in this Duran fight, they are using a 10-point must system, so the state of West Virginia is flexible in the must.
In round one, you take a look at the punches. Duran landing 22 of 49, not a bad percentage. Culbert threw only 2 power punches and missed them both, so almost all of those punches were jabs in the front. And most of those power punches, I believe, by Duran landed to the body, I would imagine. And yes, that is confirmed to me about Kenobi and Logan Hobson, the punch profile moguls.
When Roberto Duran turned pro on March 3rd of 1967, Mike Culbert was 6 years old, 6 months old.
Okay.
And he was 5 years, 9 months old when Duran won his first title in 1972. Duran says the best fights of his career was the title win against Ken Buchanan in '72 at the Garden when he won the lightweight title, his 1980 win against Sugar Ray Leonard, and his 1989 win against Iran Barkley. Of course, all title victories.
And what he did in that Barkley fight, he just did there, going to the body very effectively against Culbert. Interestingly, I announced that match with Barkley. That's one I don't think Duran won. I think Iran won that one, but he got the nod. In any case, he performed well at an age when he shouldn't have been performing well.
Duran has 7 career second-round knockouts. Culbert has 1.
You know, Culbert's standing in front of Duran a little bit more in this round. If you do that, Duran's going to hit you. He's working the body pretty well and getting some shots in as Roberto Duran.
Obviously, Duran was wearing a tank top when he was training.
Yeah.
You can see the tan lines.
These are the insightful comments you get from us, your intrepid boxing announcers. We're here to report, no matter what it is.
I did train about 6 weeks in Panama for this fight.
You mentioned the Buchanan win. As a lightweight, he defended his crown 13 times, but when he stepped up in weight, he's 3-5 in championship matches at weights higher than lightweight. So as he went up in weight in his life, things didn't stay as rosy for Roberto Duran.
Round number 2 coming to an end. Roberto Duran and Mike Culbert. This one is scheduled for 10 on the deuce. Roberto Duran up from his corner and ready to start round number 3 against Mike Culbert from Mountaineer Resort, Chester, West Virginia. Bob Papa along with Al Bernstein. Glad you could join us tonight on the deuce. Fairly nondescript first 2 rounds. Al, some numbers for us?
Well, we take a peek and we see that through the second round, Duran is having his way, landing 46%. Culbert moved his power punch total to 22. He's only landed 7 of those power punches, whereas Duran has landed 32 of 51.
Duran fires off with one of his patented low blows. You really see that from him throughout the course of the fight. Low blows, elbows, every trick of the trade.
And there is my scoring. I've got Duran winning the first 2 rounds. I thought he won those pretty easily. The sneer is not as evident as it was in the old days.
Remember that face? Would you say he was at his greatest as the lightweight?
Yeah, I think no question. And of course, the first match with Sugar Ray Leonard, which was a brilliant match. Leonard fought terrifically in that match too, which made it, so much better. That was the last time I think Roberto Duran was absolutely at his greatest. Not that he didn't come up with great performances since then. The win against Moore, at Barkley, even though, again, I thought he didn't win, he performed exceedingly well. He's had some good performances since then, but that was when he was at his best, I think.
Boy, growing up, he was my favorite.
That was a great era. Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, Wilfred Benitez. I mean, those were outstanding boxers. Culbert is standing in front of Duran too much, and they admonished him in his corner for doing that. And that's something he's not going to be able to do if he's going to be effective here.
I guess that Duran sneer in the 70s and early 80s, for a frame of reference, maybe for some young kids watching, sort of like that Tyson intimidation, where I think Duran intimidated a lot of people before that opening bell.
I agree, and what you felt was that he just didn't want to lose. He won 12 of his 13 defenses by knockout as a lightweight, and he just didn't want to lose. You looked at him, and if you were his opponent, you didn't feel like he thought he could lose. And Ray Leonard will admit that the moment got to him in Montreal at the beginning of that match, even though he came on to fight brilliantly in that bout.
See how Culbert's conditioning is. Remember, he only known about this fight for about 2 weeks. Come to the end of round 3. This one is scheduled for 10. Roberto Duran, the legend, and Mike Culbert. And Roberto Duran heads back to his corner. He turned professional in March of 1967. In his first year as a pro, he could buy a house in the United States for $8,000. Andy Griffith and the Lucille Ball Show were the top shows on television. So how has boxing changed in Duran's years in the ring? We asked him.
Boxing is in a very bad state right now. You know, when I was fighting back in the early days, you know, everybody could fight. You know, every guy, you know, is dangerous, and the quality of fighters is so much better now than back then than now. Now anybody can be a champ. There's so many different titles, there's so many different commissions, there's so many different belts. Anybody can be a champ. The quality of fighters is just not even close to being the same as when I started. The quality of fighters back then were everybody was a contender. Everybody could fight.
Al, you agree?
Well, to some extent, when he first started, that was true. But, of course, if there was not a proliferation of belts, he wouldn't have won so many. He wouldn't have 4 because he won a number of different kinds of belts as he went on. But when he did start, yeah, probably there might have been more depth in some of the weight divisions. But I don't agree with him that there aren't good fighters today. There are.
Just it's so spread out. You know, if you were with us earlier, we showed you that Duran is one of only 4 to be a champion in 4 different weight classes. Pernell Whitaker, Thomas Hearns, and Ray Leonard. And before anyone writes or calls, we're talking about IBF, WBA, WBC, or the old world title that Duran held. So, you know, the IBCs, the WBOs, we're not factoring that in because then you can throw a lot of different guys in the mix.
And we also acknowledge that the older champions, like Henry Armstrong, who won 3 titles, which was astonishing, there weren't the junior weight divisions. So for them to win, for him to win the 3 is just as remarkable, if not more so, than the guys who won the 4. Have we qualified that enough? I think so. You still get one.
Al, your scorecard through 3 rounds.
I have got Duran winning all 3. They haven't been pretty. And, of course, at this juncture in his career, some of the rounds aren't very pretty, especially when guys are moving a little bit on it. Culbert moving to righty for a moment, landing a jab.
Can Duran take him out?
Well, I think Culbert's starting to get a little tired already, and if he gets fatigued, Duran might be able to. Culbert has never been KO'd, but then he has not really been in there against anybody too tough. We're talking knockouts. Obviously, Duran's ratio is higher, and of course, he's obviously fought better competition overall than Mike Culbert. Culbert's not a big puncher.
We talk about the knockouts for Duran. His last knockout win was his last fight, but that was against an aerial cruise in Panama.
Nice body work by Duran. Yeah, you asked, could he take him out? I'll tell you, one of the ways he'll do it is by going to the body instead of the head. And I think already that's having an impact on Culbert.
Duran's recent knockouts have been against the Wilbur Garsts, the Ron Martinezes, the Heath Todds, the Terry Thomases, the Tony Menefees, the Sean Fitzgeralds.
And Culbert kind of bobbing and weaving after Duran had already left the scene.
Really, Duran's last legitimate knockout, I mean, against someone of note, is the Davey Moore fight. And that was back in '83. We come to the end of round number 4. Scheduled for 10, Duran and Culbert on the deuce. Roberto Duran. That's right, folks. This is not an old tape. This is live from Chester, West Virginia. He's still going at it. And round number 5 underway against Mike Culbert.
I have to say it. One look at his midsection tells you it's not an old tape. I got to be honest. He is not the oldest, by far, the oldest champion on a fight. Many, many have been older. Among them, Bob Fitzsimmons, who was a champion who was still fighting at the age of 50, and Jack Johnson as well. How about Archie Moore, who fought at 49, Saul Manby at 46, and the list goes on.
George Foreman, who is scheduled to fight in Tokyo. And here comes Duran a little bit, putting his punches together. Culbert says no, but Duran says yes.
Culbert has done very little offensively. So Duran has been able to get done what he wants to get done. One of the things that have never changed about Duran, when he's in any kind of condition, defensively, and this may speak to the issue you talked about how he doesn't seem to have lost any of his faculties, he's so relaxed in the ring that he's a very good defensive fighter. And that is something that maybe people don't always give him credit for.
I think though, 11 professional fights, all the sparring. There's a right hand and Culbert goes down. Duran sends him to the canvas with 2 rights. Mike Culbert is up. He can only be saved by the bell in the final round. This scheduled for 10. And now we got a timeout.
Bad cut over the left eye of Culbert. They'll take a look at it. This is a break for Culbert in a way.
Yeah.
But they may stop it because of that cut. Well, I said crowds don't always want knockouts, but in this instance, they did want the knockout.
Duran looking up at the crowd behind us, gives him a smile, says, take care of this guy. I'm going to check that cut out of Culbert.
If he wants to.
Can't hear what he's saying. And they say let him go. So we'll continue round 5. And then Culbert gives Duran a smile.
Duran just kind of holds his hands up. I'll tell you what. Roberto Duran has become almost an endearing figure in boxing. Go figure. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, via endurance, he's won his way back into people's hearts after the no mas.
You know, and the thing is, Duran does have power from time to time. He can show flashes of power with that right. That knocked Pazienza down in their first fight. We showed a clip of that.
You're right, that cut may have saved the day for Culbert, at least temporarily.
It gave him a chance to clear his head a little bit. He was rocked. He didn't get it with 1, but he got it with 2 very good right hands from Duran. Culbert is not moving as he was in the first round.
too, with a shoulder, anything. And Duran with a good combination as round number 5 comes to an end. No, a solid round 5 for Roberto Duran. You see the cut over the left eye of Mike Culbert as he was sent reeling to the canvas in that 5th round. Well, Mike Culbert ready for round number 6. They worked on the cut. And Roberto Duran stalking his foe. Duran has 7 6th-round knockouts in his career. And Culbert eats a right hand to start round number 6. Right to the body from Duran.
It's interesting watching Duran. He is obviously a ghost of what he formerly was, and yet you see in flashes the things that he always used to do so well. And obviously, he's doing them against boxers that are not way up there in stature.
Punches through 5 rounds. You see Duran comfortably in front.
But then occasionally he does them against boxers who we think have some stature, like Vinny Pazienza, who just beat a good young boxer in Dana Rosenblatt, and Hector Camacho, who gets his share of wins that get him back into major fights of some sort. And maybe that all speaks to what Duran said about some of the fighters from the wall. The body sends him down.
Right to the midsection. Took the wind out of Culbert. He was knocked down in round 5. Now down in round 6.
He was trying to claim that was a low blow, but nobody was buying it.
It was low if his trunks were up near his chin. And Duran hurt him again, and Culbert is going down. A 3-knockdown rule is in effect in West Virginia with their fluctuating rules. Culbert's up again. There's knockdown once in round 5, twice here in round 6. And let's see if Roberto Duran can get his 8th career 6th-round knockout.
And Duran's so smart, going right to the body. Even at 45, he knows what to do in that ring. He knows the body shots are what will really hurt Culbert. So he goes downstairs. Very smart man in the ring and outside of it, too, I might add.
Culbert's out on his feet. Referee steps in, Dave Johnson, and that's it.
Good job by Dave Johnson to step in.
Mike Culbert stopped in round number 6. Well, the hands of stone may not be what they once were, but good enough to stop a Mike Culbert.
Referee Dave Johnson steps in at 2 minutes, 24 seconds of the 6th round. Your winner by TKO, Roberto Duran.
It comes at 2:24 of round number 6. His 69th knockout, his 99th win. Roberto Duran stops Mike Culbert in round number 6. For Al Bernstein and our entire crew, I'm Bob Papa. Thanks for joining us for Boxing on the Deuce from Chester, West Virginia.